All right. Hey, everybody. I hit the button a little bit early, but that's okay today. We're here and hanging out and getting ready for our Bible study. Hope you are doing well on this great Wednesday morning. It's been a good day already thus far today. So that's exciting stuff, right? I got my coffee going over here. Hope you got your coffee going. A little bit of home roasted deliciousness in this cup right now. And when it says liquid power, it means liquid power. That's what's happening here. Okay, so today we're continuing on our study in the book of Judges, and it's been so good so far, right? It's been awesome. It's a little bit of a little bit of a book that I think the people maybe don't always read. Like, I think it's one of those books that people know exists in the Bible and they have a lot of assumptions about, but people don't necessarily read it, right? They don't necessarily jump into it the way that they should. And so what we want to do today is, or what we're doing is we're reading it. We're going through it and we're learning what we can learn from it together. And it's really interesting. And today's story, I've got to tell you, today's story is very interesting, just very, very interesting. As we talk about the person that is called Abimelech. Abimelech is Gideon's son. He was acknowledged in last week's reading. He was acknowledged, or not last week's, in yesterday's reading. He was mentioned, and he is Gideon's son. Now, keep in mind, remember the trajectory of Gideon. The trajectory of Gideon was like a guy who knew who God was, but maybe didn't have great faith, into a man who accomplished God's purposes, and then into a man who really turned himself into a god through pride, right? And so that's the trajectory that we have. Abimelech is one of Gideon's sons. Gideon has 70 sons, or like 71, something like that, sons. He had a ton of concubines and wives and everything, and so he has a whole bunch of children. And Abimelech is maybe the weakest link of all of them, because he is the only son of Shechem, and so he is the outcast of the family. He's kind of the black sheep. So what we're going to do today is we're going to see how that affected him and kind of what he tries to do. And he is not, Abimelech will not become a judge of Israel. So understand that. So the judging of Israel was not passed down the family line the way that we think of whenever we think of like kings or something like that. You know, we have this family lineage in our brain whenever we think about kings, but that is not the case for Israel and their judges. Abimelech will not become their judge, but he most definitely, we're going to see, is going to try to become their king. So this is what it says. Judges, I'm going to start reading at chapter 8, verse 33. There's a whole lot of scripture today. I'm going to try to help you make sense of it, because your first reading of it can be a little bit challenging. I'm just going to admit that there, but we're doing it together, so I think it'll be okay. All right, here we go. As soon as Gideon died, verse 33, the people of Israel turned again and whored after the Baals and made Baal-berith their god. And the people of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hand of all of their enemies on every side, and they did not show steadfast love to the family of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done for Israel. So we see really what's happening here in the beginning is Israel, they were basically worshiping Gideon at the end of his life, but once he died, they turned to other Baals, to other false gods, and they basically gave up on Gideon's family, turned away from them, right? And did not honor them anymore. Chapter 9, verse 1. Now Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem, his mother's relatives, right? To his mother's relatives, so back in the homeland. And he said to them and to the whole clan of his mother's family, say in the ears of all of the leaders of Shechem, which is better for you, that all 70 of the sons of Jerubbaal rule over you, or that one rule over you? Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. And his mother's relatives spoke all these words on his behalf in the ears of the leaders of Shechem, and their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, he is our brother. And they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal-berith, which Abimelech hired worthless and reckless fellows who followed him. And he went to his father's house at Ophrah and killed his brothers, the son of Jerubbaal, the 70 men, on one stone. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. And all the leaders of Shechem came together, and all Beth Millo, and they went and made Abimelech king by the oak of the pillar at Shechem. Now, this is very interesting, okay? So notice that at the beginning of this, okay, we ended there at verse 6. Notice that Abimelech begins this whole section by giving his people a false narrative, right? The narrative that he's giving his people is that basically saying, you know, my dad was king, so we're going to be kings, and I can be your king, or everybody can be your king. And of course, you're Shechem. Do you really want everybody, like you're kind of like the armpit of the nation? Do you want everybody to be your king, or do you want one of your own? Would you like for me to be your king, right? But that's a false story, because Gideon, first of all, turned down being a king, even though he acts very kingly at the end of his life. He does tell the people that the Lord leads them, not him. He does tell them that, even though he acts in direct opposition with God, and he names his son Abimelech, which means the child of the king, or the king is my father, is what it means, right? But he does kind of turn down being king. So it's not even as if these people need to be king. It's not even as if Abimelech is going to be king, or if these people have a king at all, right? That's the confusing thing. But he does trick them, and they fall for it, and they say, we want him to be king. So what does he do? He goes with these men that he's hired, and he kills all of his brothers with one stone, right? Except for the youngest brother, Jotham, does escape. Okay, and that's going to be very important as we read what comes next. So verse 7, when it was told to Jotham, he went and stood at the top of the Mount Gerizim and cried aloud. He was told all of his brothers were just murdered by this one half brother. And he said to them, listen to me, you leaders of Shechem, that God may listen to you. And then he gives them this really great, like, parable riddle type of a thing. The trees, in verse 8, the trees once went out to anoint a king over them. They said to the olive tree, reign over us. But the olive tree said to them, shall I leave my abundance by which gods and men are honored, and go hold sway over the trees? And the tree said to the fig tree, you come and reign over us. But the fig tree said to them, shall I leave my sweetness and my good fruit, and go sway over the trees? And the tree said to the vine, you come, reign over us. But the vine said to them, shall I leave my wine that cheers God and men, and go hold sway over the trees? Then all the trees said to the bramble, you come and reign over us. And the bramble said to the trees, if in good faith you are anointing me king over you, then come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. In other words, right, they went to all of the good trees, and all of the good trees were like, no, I have a good thing going here. I'm not going to come and lead you. And then they went to the worthless bramble, right? And the worthless bramble said, yeah, I will lead you, and then threatened them, right? And what he's doing is he's really casting out judgment against Abimelech. That's what's happening. Jotham is really casting out judgment against Abimelech. He continues in verse 16. Now, therefore, if you acted in good faith and integrity when you made Abimelech king, and if you have dealt well with Jerubbaal and his house, and have done to him as his deeds deserved, for my father fought for you and risked his life and delivered you from the hand of Midian, and you have risen up against my father's house this day, and have killed his son, 70 men on one stone, and have made Abimelech, the son of his female servant, king over the leaders of Shechem, because he is your relative. If you then have acted in good faith and integrity with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech, and let him rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour the leaders of Shechem and Beth Millo, and let fire come out from the leaders of Shechem and from Beth Millo and devour Abimelech. And Jotham ran away and fled and went to Beer and lived there because of Abimelech his brother. So basically what he's doing is he's calling them out for being evil, wicked people in erecting this evil, wicked leader, right? For bringing this guy up. Like, he's calling them out on it. That's what's happening here. It's a very poetic way of saying, you guys have basically, even though Gideon's heritage isn't the best, his legacy is decent in the fact that he did rescue them from Midian. And he's saying, you guys have destroyed the legacy of Gideon, and now you are using the least likely candidate to ever become king to be your leader. And because of how you treated Gideon, right? Jerubbaal, Gideon, the same person. Because of how you treated Gideon, you deserve to be destroyed. That's basically what he's saying. Now, Abimelech, Gideon's son, ruled over Israel 3 years, which is a tiny dynasty, right? If you think about all of the other oppressors of Israel that we've had thus far, 3 years pales in comparison. And God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the leaders of Shechem. And the leaders of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech, that the violence done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might come, and their blood be laid on Abimelech their brother who killed them, and on the men of Shechem, who strengthened his hands to kill his brothers. And the leaders of Shechem put men in ambush against him on the mountaintops, and they robbed all who passed by them along the way. And it was told to Abimelech. You can see this, like, they just are always evil all the time, right? And evil men conspiring together. Verse 26, and Gaal the son of Ebed moved into Shechem with his relatives, and the leaders of Shechem put confidence in him, and they went out into the field, and they gathered the grapes from the vineyards, and they trod them, and held a festival, and they went to the house of their God, and they ate, and they drank, and they reviled Abimelech. And Gaal the son of Ebed said, who is Abimelech? Who are we, and who are we of Shechem that we should serve him? Is he not the son of Jerubbaal, and is not Zebul his officer? Serve the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem. But why should we serve him? Would that his people were under my hand, then I would remove Abimelech. I would say to Abimelech, increase your army and come out. So you can see there's this conflict building. When Zebul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gaal the son of Ebed, his anger was kindled. And he sent messengers to Abimelech secretly, saying, behold, Gaal the son of Ebed and his relatives have come to Shechem, and they are stirring up the city against you. Now therefore go by night, you and the people who are with you, and set an ambush in the field. Then in the morning, as soon as the sun is up, rise early and rush upon the city. And when he and the people who are with him come out against you, you may do it to them as your hand finds to do. So Abimelech and all the men who were with him rose up by night. They set an ambush against Shechem in 4 companies, and Gaal and the son of Ebed went out and stood in the entrance of the gate of the city, and Abimelech and the people who were with him rose from the ambush. And when Gaal saw the people, he said to Zebul, look, people are coming down from the mountaintops. And Zebul said to him, you mistake the shadow of the mountains for men. Gaal spoke again and said, look, the people are coming down from the center of the land, and one company is coming from the direction of the diviner's oak. Then Zebul said to him, where is your mouth now, you who said, who is Abimelech, that we should serve him? Are not these people whom you despised? Go out now and fight with them. And Gaal went out at the head of the leaders Shechem and fought with Abimelech. And Abimelech chased him and fled before him, and many fell wounded up to the entrance of the gate. And Abimelech lived at Aramah, and Zebul drove out Gaal and his relatives so that they could not dwell at Shechem. All of this inward fighting, all of this disaster, all of this destruction coming because Abimelech had to rise to power alone. Verse 42, on the following day, the people went out into the field, and Abimelech was told. He took his people and divided them into 3 companies and set an ambush in the fields. And he looked and he saw the people coming out of the city, so he rose against them and killed them. Abimelech and the company that was with him rushed forward and stood at the entrance of the gate of the city, while the 2 companies rushed upon all who were in the field and killed them. And Abimelech fought against the city all that day. He captured the city and killed the people who were in it, and he razed the city, and he sowed it with salt. And when the leaders of the tower of Shechem heard it, they entered the stronghold of the house of El-Berith. Abimelech was told that all the leaders of the tower of Shechem were gathered together, and Abimelech went up to Mount Zalmon. he and all the people who were with him. And Abimelech took an axe in his hand and cut down a bundle of brushwood, and he took it up and he laid it on his shoulder. And he said to the men who were with him, "What you have seen me do, hurry and do as I've done." So every one of the people cut down his bundle, and following Abimelech, put it against the stronghold, and they set the stronghold on fire over them, so that all the people of the tower of Shechem also died, about 1,000 men and women. And here's what we see. Gideon was brought into power to take down an oppressor. And through his pride, he rose up to become this false god for Israel, right? And upon his death, Israel followed some other false god, chasing the wind, the way that Israel always does. But Gideon's son, Abimelech, the outcast, he too rose to power. But he did not rise to power to free Israel from oppression. He rose to power so that he could begin to become the oppressor, right? Verse 50, Abimelech went to Thebez and camped against Thebez and captured it. But there was a strong tower within the city, and all the men and women and leaders of the city fled to it and shut themselves in. And they went up to the roof of the tower. And Abimelech came to the tower and fought against it and drew near to the door of the tower to burn it with fire. And a certain woman threw an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. Then he called quickly to the young man, his armor bearer, and said to him, "Draw your sword and kill me, lest they say of me, a woman killed him." And his young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, everyone departed to his home. Thus God returned the evil of Abimelech, which he committed against his father in killing his 70 brothers. And God also made all the evil of the men of Shechem return on their heads, and upon them came the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal. What we see in this is that people's need for power and people's need for acceptance and people's need for authority, it just fuels division after division after division, and it wages war against the very thing that God is trying to do. God doesn't want to see these battles happening. That's not God's desire, right? God's desire in this moment is to raise up judges who will free Israel from oppression, that Israel would choose to follow the one true God, that they wouldn't be put underneath oppression anymore. And time again, person after person, people group after people group, Israel keeps falling victim to oppression because they keep choosing to follow their oppressors. And Abimelech is one. His dad freed them from oppression. The son became the oppressor. We're going to talk more about the story tomorrow. We're going to continue. We're going to meet Tola and Jer tomorrow. We're going to talk some more. I hope that you can join us. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, you can always drop them in the comment sections. Of course, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. You can click the bell icon to receive notifications. And I would most appreciate if you would share this video with one person that you think would like to start studying the Bible, but is a little intimidated to do so. Because what I'm really hoping is that as I break this down, it makes the Bible a little bit easier for people to start getting underneath their eyeballs. The Bible is so important. We got to start spreading the word. Love you guys. See you tomorrow.